In this lesson, we will review how to solve perimeter and circumference problems. So, as a review, the perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape. It's the total length of all the sides of a polygon. So, in something like a rectangle, you would be adding up the lengths of the four sides. Same with a square or a triangle, and even irregular shapes. You're just going to add up all the sides. Also, you'll notice here that there's some formulas. In general, these are just intended to be a little bit of a shortcut for you. So if you're looking at a rectangle, you could add up this side plus this side plus this side plus this side. But ultimately, you would be adding 2 of the lengths and 2 of the widths. So we have 2L plus 2W. So it's just a little shortcut. Same with a square. All the sides, though, in this case, would be equal. So instead of adding up 4 numbers separately, you could just do 4 times S, or 4 times the side length. In a triangle, you're just going to add up the 3 sides, side 1, side 2, side 3. And in an irregular shape, you're just going to add up all the sides. So this might be 4 sides, 5 sides, 6 sides, any number of sides. You need to add all of them up. Now, if you recall, when we're dealing with circles, we don't call it perimeter, we call it circumference. And to find the circumference of a circle, you're going to use one of 2 formulas. You will either use this formula, which is pi times diameter. Remember, pi is a number. It's approximately 3.14 times the diameter. The diameter is the distance from one edge of the circle through the center to the other side of the circle. Or you can use the radius, which is halfway across the circle from the center, and you would multiply 2 times pi times the radius, since you'd have to double the radius before multiplying it by pi. Once you know the perimeter or circumference of a shape, you can solve a whole bunch of different types of problems. So on the next page, you'll see the first example. It says lace costs $4 per meter. Calculate the cost of putting lace around this rectangular tablecloth. So for this question, you would first need to find the perimeter of this shape. So this is a rectangle. That means that this side is 2.8, and so is this side. And if this side is 1.6, so is this side. So you can either add 1.6 plus 2.8 plus 1.6 plus 2.8, or if you want a little bit of a shortcut, you would do 2 times 1.6 plus 2 times 2.8. You get the same result, it's just a little bit faster to use multiplication. And when you do that, you will get 8.8. And these are meters. So that's the perimeter of this shape. But this question didn't just ask for that. It asked you for the cost to put lace around the perimeter of this shape. So in your final step, you're going to need to multiply the total length times the cost per meter. And when you multiply 8.8 times 4, the total cost would be $35.20. Now, using perimeter, you could also solve something like example 2. It's asking you to determine the length of the unknown side if the perimeter of this triangle is 58. So we need to know 23 plus 19 plus what other length would equal 58 meters. And to solve this, the easiest way to do it is to use subtraction. 58 minus 23 minus 19. And when we do that subtraction, the result is 16 meters. In example 3, it says Carrie is creating a label for her water bottle. The radius of the bottle is 7 centimeters. How long does the label have to be to wrap around her water bottle? So if we think about the bottom of this water bottle, it says the radius is 7 centimeters. If she's going to be putting a label around this water bottle, we want to know how long it would be. So that's the circumference of the bottom of this water bottle. And we know on the previous page you had your formulas for circumference, and there was 2 versions. You can either use pi times diameter or 2 times pi times radius, depending what's given to you in the question. In this question, we've been given radius, so we're going to use 2 times pi times the radius. Now on your calculator, you're going to want to use the pi button. So it depends what kind of calculator you're using, but on my calculator, you would go 2 times pi times 7. And we get an answer of 43.98 centimeters. On some calculators, you might have to select second function or shift. So on this calculator, for example, the pi button is right above this button at the bottom. So in order to use it, you would have to do 2 times and then shift and this times 10 button to get the pi symbol times 7. And you would get the same result. So it depends on your calculator. In example 4, it says determine the length of each side of an equilateral triangle that has a perimeter of 81. So the first thing to remember is that an equilateral triangle has 3 sides that are all equal to each other. So if the perimeter equals 81, and we want to know the side lengths, we can take the total perimeter and divide it into the 3 sides. So the sides, one side length would be equal to 81 divided by 3. And 81 divided by 3 is 27 centimeters. So 27 plus 27 plus 27 would equal 81 centimeters. In question number 5, it says Henrik is edging his garden. It's an irregular shape. The cost of edging is $2.75 per foot. How much will it cost Henrik to buy edging? So the first thing you're going to want to do is find the perimeter of this shape. In order to do that, it's probably easiest to change each of these into decimals. So this would be 9.25. Remember, to do that, you can do 1 divided by 4 on your calculator. This would be 4.75, and this would be 16.5. Now I mentioned in the previous lesson that when it comes to imperial measurements, we don't usually use decimals, but when it comes time to be adding this up in your calculator, decimals are much easier to input into your calculator than fractions are. You could also just add up the fractions too. It just requires a little bit more effort. So if we add these up, 16.5 plus 6 plus 4.75 plus 19 plus 9.25 gives us a total perimeter of 55.5 feet, 55 and a half feet. But this is asking us the cost of edging. So the cost is going to be equal to the distance times the price per foot, so $2.75. and that gives us a total cost of $152.63. And last but not least in this lesson is example 6. It says Chalmers Community Center is building new boards around their hockey rinks. Determine the distance around the rink. So you can see here that we have two semicircles, which don't look that great. The printing is not great, but we're going to say that these are two semicircles so that when we put them together, they form one circle. So we know that this distance here is 200 feet. This distance here would also be 200 feet. So that's a total of 400 feet. But if we want to find the perimeter, or the distance around, we also need to find the perimeter, or the circumference, of these half circles, or semicircles. So if we know that the diameter here is 85 feet, and we know our formula for the circumference of a circle is pi times diameter, we can use this formula and this diameter to calculate the total for both of these circles together. So if you think about squeezing these two circles together to form a single circle with a diameter of 85, then this will give us our circumference of the whole thing. So pi times 85 is 267.04 feet. But we also want to add, so this is for the two semicircles. So that measurement there is for this. Like I said, this picture isn't the best, but we're just going to pretend that these are definitely semicircles. They're a little bit elongated. But then we need to add on these two other sides. So 267.04 plus 200 plus 200. And that gives us a total of 667.04 feet for the whole